Continue to enjoy lunch. We'll get the actual debate underway sometime around noon in the next 10 to 15 minutes. I'm Gary Yaquinto, President and CEO of Arizona Investment Council. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. The very first order of business, we do have index cards. For those people that are dying to have their own question asked by the moderator, please write your question out, write it legibly. We'd like to get those to the moderator before he actually begins his questions of the candidates so he can sort them into the questions that he's already prepared. So if you do have a question on a card, please get those up front. Next, we're recording the debate and we'll make it available for on-demand viewing from AIC's website at arizonaic.org, and we will endeavor to get an email out as soon as that link is available so that you know where to access that video if you care to do so. If I could, at this time, for the candidates that have at least finished their lunch, if I could invite you to join me here up on the stage so we can get you seated. I'd appreciate that. By the way, we have drawn lots for order of speaking, so opening comments will flow in this direction, and then we'll do the reverse coming back toward the podium for closing statements. And I'd like, as the candidates wander up to the stage, I'd like to personally thank you for agreeing to participate in the debate here this morning and for appearing. I know how difficult it is during your campaign to arrange times to do things like this, but we sincerely appreciate your effort in being here. So thank you for that. 3 of the 7 gentlemen that will be up on stage will be elected this year to serve a 4-year term on the Corporation Commission beginning next January. And it's our hope that this forum will provide you, the audience, with information and insight on which of the candidates that you would like to see as a Corporation Commissioner. Unless anyone think that we have filled the room only with utility representatives, let me tell you that we have a great mixture of stakeholder organizations and groups here. We have solar advocates in the room. We have consumer advocates. We have citizen volunteers from AARP here. So we should have a good mix in the audience. And thank you, audience, for being here with us today. So at this time, I would like to introduce the chairman of Arizona Investment Council, Mr. Jack Lunsford. Among the many hats that Jack wears, he's also president of the Lunsford Group and has recently been named interim president, CEO of the Arizona Small Business Association. Please join me in welcoming Jack Lunsford.
Good afternoon, everyone. Everybody's mouth's full. Okay, that's a good sign. Thank you all for joining us again this year as we seek to share with you the candidates for the Corporation Commission. It's something that's near and dear to the heart of what we at the Arizona Investment Council are doing. We represent 6,000 utility investors, and our role is to be advocates on their behalf for energy, policy, infrastructure, and the like. And I'm fortunate to be joined by 2 of my fellow board members, Erica Hansen, who is our vice chair, Erica, and a young fellow some of you may know. I still have to call him Michael Grant, but Mike Grant, who is with us, and we appreciate all that both of them do for us. We are fortunate to have some other elected officials besides the ones up on the dais. And Rosanna Gabaldon is here. Representative Gabaldon, thank you for being here. And a fellow that we've probably both known since we had darker hair, Avondale City Councilman David Iwanski. Dave, thank you. I'm going to tell you that Gary mentioned this new gig that I have, and because it's paying me, I'm going to be forced to leave early, and I apologize for that. I was really looking forward to hearing everything that you said. I'm fortunate because I've known all of these folks in one capacity or another over many, many years, and so I was really looking forward to it. So all of you, please forgive me. And if you're speaking the moment I leave, don't take it personal. With that, I think my other role, and before I introduce our host, I want to thank WUAA for being our partners. And for me, it's special because when I was CEO of Westmark many, many years ago, a fellow by the name of Ray Jones was a board chair of mine at the time. So as life circles back around or old guys remain, it doesn't, either way, Ray and I have the chance to work again together, and you'll hear from Ray in just a minute. You know, usually when you get to share some really, really, really positive things about someone, it's either at their retirement or their funeral eulogy. But I get to do that for our host, Dr. Chris Bustamante, representing Rio Salado College. When I was at Maricopa Community Colleges, there was this guy that Harvard wanted, and Phoenix Union High School District still wanted him back. And I knew him from his days in the legislature, and I said, we've got to have him. And so for 9 years, he was my partner, and I think contributed a great deal to whatever success that I had. And you know, I'm just grateful to be able to share those personal positive things about Chris. What Chris is known for, however, is being an advocate across the country for increasing access to higher education and for degree completion. Rio Salado Community College is the largest of the Maricopa Community Colleges in terms of enrollment, with over 56,000 students annually. So Chris has a great role in bringing that forward. He's been the president since 2010. And in fact in June, so congratulations on that recent anniversary. He holds both doctor's and master's degrees from that university up north, NAU, and he got those actually while we were working together, excuse me. And then he went to that other university down south at the University of Arizona and Pima Community College. So he's, you know, he's still really confused because he hasn't done anything at that real central university here in Maricopa County. So we'll help you with that too, Chris. With that, please welcome my friend, my colleague, and our host, Dr. Chris Bustamante.
Thank you, Jack, for that great introduction. As you can tell, Jack and I have been friends for a long time, and he's been a great friend and colleague over the years, so I appreciate him a lot. I am president of Rio Salado College, and this is a very special college, as you had heard, in the Maricopa system, the largest of the 10. But we do a lot of very interesting things. We serve underserved markets. So wherever the universities and the traditional colleges aren't serving residents, then we are. So we're in prisons, we serve ABE students, adult basic ed, I should say, not use the acronym. We have radio stations. Maybe you're familiar with National Public Radio. KJZZ is here in the tower just to the south of us. We have a reading service for the visually impaired over the radio, internet service, where we have well over 500 volunteers every year that record and read to the visually impaired statewide in a service that we have. And then, of course, we have KBOC, the Valley's classical radio station that we share in partnership with Arizona State University. And so, you know, with the arts and culture and certainly the classical radio station, we do really well. So we're really proud of that mission and that heritage that we have as an institution. We've been around since 1978, so for a long time. And I have a lot of friends in the audience that I haven't seen in a long time, including Mr. Burns, who's not used to seeing me probably in this role. But I remember he used to fly When Pigs Fly in his office, right, for asks for appropriations. I'll never forget that. But he was very helpful when he could be to us and the community colleges for sure. You know, it is very much within the mission of the Maricopa Community Colleges, which is the largest provider of workforce development in the state of Arizona, serving 250,000 students each year in 10 independently accredited colleges. To also have a mission to be of civic engagement, and so it's very fitting for us to have a forum like this, a candidate forum that we have for many other races, as well as this one for the Corporation Commission today. So it's very important for us. It's certainly appropriate for us to do it, and we like when it's done very much in the way it's being done today, in a very fair and unbiased way, so that you have the best information to make the decision that you need to make as voters. So I am your host today. I hope you've enjoyed your meal. Our staff wanted to make sure that you were comfortable today, and let's give them a hand for what they were providing. So with that said, I want to wish the candidates well, and I think we should get on with the debate. So thank you again, and welcome to Rio.
Again, thank you, Chris and Torrio Salado and Maricopa Community Colleges for hosting all of us. Please, we acknowledged the staff of Rio Salado and for the meal service. Please recognize Gary Aquinto, who is the president of our AIC organization, and Michelle, who is behind making all of the things work out here. So please acknowledge them as well. So I have again the opportunity of introducing someone that I've worked for over the years and collaborated with through public policy issues, and I'm fortunate to have had that. I'm now fortunate to have the ability to come back and work with Arizona Water Users Association in partnership for this event with you all. So will you all please give a real strong welcome for Ray Jones.
Thank you, Jack. It's my pleasure to be here as one of the hosts today. The Water Utilities Association of Arizona represents the over 250 water companies that are regulated by the Arizona Corporation Commission here in the state of Arizona. We're very pleased to co-sponsor this debate, and we hope that while we know the focus is on the electric issues and the solar issues, we hope that our involvement will, at least for a brief time, let us focus on the water issues that this commission and our member companies face every day in this state. I would like to introduce my board of directors. I'm going to try to get everybody. I've got Steve Gudovic from Big Park Water Company, Bonnie O'Connor from Southwestern Utility Management, Arturo Gabaldon from Community Water, Bob Prince from Valley Utilities, Marvin Collins from Sunrise Water Company, Ron Fleming from Global Water, Joe Harris from Arizona Water Company, and I think that's all of our board in attendance. Oh, and Stan Bullard from Camp Verde Water. Now I think that's everybody. Let's have a round of applause for the board. So on behalf of my board of directors and all the members of Water Utilities Association, thank you for the candidates, for all participating in this, and thank you to our large audience for being participants today too. We very much appreciate it. An event like this, though, couldn't happen without the sponsors that we've seen going by on the screen up here. So I want to take a minute. I want to introduce our event sponsors and get a round of applause for each one of those if we could. So in no particular order, Southwest Gas Corporation, Liberty Utilities, Salt River Project, Arizona Water Company, Tucson Electric Power Company, Unisource Energy Services, EPCOR, and last but not least, Arizona Public Service Company, APS. We also have table sponsors today. I will go through that list, and then we can do a round of applause collectively for that group. We've got AARP, the Rose Law Group, Southwestern Utility Management, Fenimore Craig, Quarles and Brady, CenturyLink, Osborne Maladon, Lewis, Roca, Rothgerber, Christie, and Snell and Wilmer. Thank you for all our table sponsors. And with that, I know we're all anxious to begin. I will turn it back over to Gary, and I'm sure he's going to get us rolling here soon. Thanks, Gary.
Okay, what I'd like to do is introduce today's moderator for the debate, Chip Scutari. Chip is co-founder of Scutari and Cieslak Public Relations and managing partner of the firm's Arizona offices. Chip brings an authentic knowledge of politics and public policy, using his reporter's instinct and nose for a good story to the worlds of public relations, crisis communications, and media coaching. For 15 years, he worked on the journalistic front lines, covering powerful politicians and influential business leaders. National news outlets like Fox News Channel, MSNBC, National Public Radio, and the New York Times frequently call Chip for his take on the news because of his strong connections to all sides of the political spectrum. He's also been a guest blogger for the Arizona Republic's election coverage. Chip has a BA from Providence College in Business Administration and a master's degree in journalism from Syracuse University, the East Coast Basketball Universities. Please join me in welcoming Chip Scutari.
Thanks, Gary, for that great intro. I sound really impressive on that resume. Thanks, thanks everyone for being here. Hope you enjoyed your lunch, tipped your waiters. Just want to talk about a little bit of the ground rules here before we get started with the fun. Please mute your cell phones so you can hear every word that these wonderful candidates have to say. We'll have 90-second opening statements from each of the candidates and then a 60-second concluding statement. The candidates are allowed 90 seconds for their answers. There's a clock up there, so you can't cheat. We'll weave in some questions from the audience, and we will also do a lightning round that requires just a yes or no answer. Trust me, it's a lot of fun. Part of my job will be playing the role of the platitude police. If I hear, banal talking points, I may step in and say, be original. And for those people in the Twitterverse, if you want to tweet about the debate, you could use the hashtag #ACCDebate. I know it's really original, but at least we'll group all the tweets together. So just so you know, the candidates have not seen these questions. I'm here to learn just like the audience. Hopefully we'll have a good time and meet all these group of people who are running for office. So we have predetermined order. We'll start with Bob Burns for his opening statement, and we'll work our way down to the end of the table. So Bob, take it away. Oh, one other thing. If you would like to stand during your opening and closing statements, it's fine. There's a microphone here, but I remind you, you only have 90 seconds, so you can't pontificate after that. So sit or stand, Bob, whatever you want to do.
Well, I'm good right here, I guess.
Okay.
And typical opening remarks are, I am Bob Burns, and I am a candidate for the Corporation Commission, currently serving on the commission. I have a great concern about what I call the cloud that has been spread over the commission in the last 2 to 3 years. And I think that the way to correct that problem is transparency, and that is probably my number one priority in this campaign, is to assure that in the future there is transparency with the dealings, especially in the election cycles for candidates to the Corporation Commission. Another interest area of mine is technology. I came from a computer programming background, and the technology that is occurring especially in the electrical generation arena is, I believe, unprecedented for the time that we've been in the business of producing electricity. So that is a high interest level of mine. I think it's a game changer. I think microgrids as part of that technology package is probably going to be right at the top of the list in making that game change occur. So very interesting time, I believe, in the electrical generation world, and I'd like to be a part of that, and so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm Rick Gray. I've been in the House of Representatives for the last 6 years, serving LD 21, Legislative District 21. I followed the Corporation Commission before I was in the legislature because it has such a huge impact for our district, and the bottom line is it has an impact across the state. My background includes being a businessman and a plumbing contractor. So and I appreciate what Ray had said, we've got, I think, 15 power utilities and over 300 wastewater utilities. The power utilities are the ones that catch the headlines, but the water issues are of tremendous value, and that's, for me, one of my top priorities. My three key points, and hopefully Chip won't flag me for being, banal, but my 3 key points are protect the ratepayer. I think that's the responsibility of a commissioner, protect the ratepayer. My other priority, second priority, is to provide reliable, affordable utilities. I think that means we have to have healthy utilities so that cuts the cost down for ratepayers. It's good for all concerned. And then my third point is we need to prepare for the future. One of the things I've seen at the legislature is sometimes we kind of get reactive. We get focused on just dealing with what's on our plate right now. And I think we have to be careful of that. If anybody's read the little booklet, The Tyranny of the Urgent, I think sometimes we get controlled by the urgent rather than the important. And I think my third point is we need to prepare for the future. I think we need to look ahead, and we need to deal with those rate issues, and there are going to be some top serious rate issues this coming year. But I think along with that, as commissioners, we also have to look at that big picture. We need to look at what's down the road, and we can't just deal with the urgency of what's on our plate right now. We have to look forward and prepare for the future too.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Chabin, and it's great to be here, and I'm running with Bill Mundell for the Corporation Commission. But I think that we can talk about the future, we can talk about water issues, we can talk about power issues, but what is the issue involving the Arizona Corporation Commission today? It's the cloud. It's one utility that did not take a pledge to stay out of the elections. One utility that invested millions of dollars from ratepayer funds to corrupt, or at least create the appearance of corruption, of our Arizona Corporation Commission, that has invited the FBI to investigate them and the Corporation Commission. That's the issue. If we're going to deal with issues fairly, if we're going to deal with issues in open hearings. If we are going to be separated as a commission from the influence of the utilities or the apparent influence of utilities, there's two ways to take care of it. One way is through the FBI to clean it all up, and the other, the ballot box. Thank you very much.
My name is Al Melvin, and I want to thank the people who arranged the gathering today and to thank all of you for coming here. It really is an important subject. I was an Arizona State Senator for 6 years from '09 to '15, representing my legislative district in southern Pinal County. I'm a retired U.S. Navy captain after 30 years in the Naval Reserve. I got my MBA from Thunderbird, which is now part of ASU. And I've been involved in international trade and transportation since my graduation from the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. In the Senate, I was chairman of the Senate Commerce and Energy Commission. What excites me about the commission is that by doing the right thing with electricity, water, and gas, making them affordable, plentiful, and reliable, we can put our people back to work and make Arizona one of the most prosperous states in the nation. Unemployment is not 5%. It's more like 20 or 25%. And the commission can do a lot in putting our people back to work, and I can't wait to get started.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Mundell. You know, in the past, debates like this were important to our state and our democracy. But let's be honest with ourselves. If APS spends millions in dark money in this commission race, this debate here today will probably be meaningless. We're just going through the motions, and our state and our democracy are in deep trouble. Tom and I have called it the cycle of corruption. What do we mean by that? You take money, APS gives money to organizations, funnels money to organizations, who then turn around and either elect or defeat candidates for the Corporation Commission. That was done 2 years ago, both on the Democratic and Republican side. You know, I was presiding judge in Chandler for a number of years, and I learned that the appearance of fairness and impartiality is as important as the decision itself. If the people and the parties that participate at the commission don't think they're getting a fair shake, the decisions are not going to have the respect and the dignity they deserve. I don't think anyone that's objective can say that the fact that the FBI served subpoenas on the commission, on APS, and interviewed the prior chairman of the commission is not troubling. That's what we're facing. That's what we need to change. We need commissioners that are going to be fair and objective and listen to the evidence and make their decisions on the evidence and facts and not who spent millions to get them elected. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Boyd Dunn, and I guess in terms of qualifications, I'm the only one up here that does not have experience being in the Arizona legislature. My experience is a little unique and different, and I think will be a benefit to the Corporation Commission. I retired as a Superior Court judge in December of last year, so I've had 6 months to try to figure out what to do in life, and here I am. But in those 36 years, I was a trial attorney, assistant attorney general that dealt with state agencies, and then as a Superior Court judge. Also, during that time, I had 28 years of being in public service, including 16 years with the city of Chandler and being mayor of the city of Chandler, the fourth largest city in the state, for 8 of those years. On a regional basis, I had the privilege of being a charter member of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, being on the MAG Transportation Committee that put together our regional transportation plan, and also as president of the league, I had the opportunity of speaking to mayors and elected officials throughout the state on issues that involve this group, utilities and especially water. So why am I running? I feel this is an opportunity for me to bring in my unique qualifications, that of being a judge, to a system that needs it. We have a quasi-judicial process in the state of Arizona with a commission. And as Bill indicated, we need to make certain that all decisions on a case-by-case basis are made by the facts that are presented in balancing both the interests of the ratepayers but also those investors of the utility companies. That is a responsibility that must be based on the record alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Tobin. My wife gave me a note to remind everybody that Bryce was 9 pounds, 6 ounces, and 22 inches long on Sunday. So just in case you were wondering. So I'm the new guy at the commission. The governor appointed me in February, appointed me to be an independent and reasonable rural voice, and I intend to do that and have been. In the short 5 months I've been there, we have passed major water policy that the industry's been waiting for 20 years, which streamlines processes for emergency dollars, which streamlines the rate-making process like they've never had before. And also to be there for those who are struggling water companies, to give larger companies a chance to get in there and help and assist them. So we just got off of a senior tour. Folks don't know around the state that we do securities. So we just left NAU. We did a senior security tour up there. That'll be traveling around the state. I created the water emergency team. You probably, a lot of you in this room, helped get $200,000. Representative Gabaldon, thank you very much for helping to do that, to help our small and especially rural homes. You may have noticed that part of the time that we're not there at the commission, we have something called railroads. You know, there's 6,000 miles and there's thousands of crossings, and we had one person managing that and one person watching the crossings. So we've doubled it in the short time that I have been there. And, you know, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be having an event, you know, what do we call them, a workshop that you'll see. We're going to discuss peak in an open and honest and manner that Representative Stump, old days, Supervisor Stump has assisted with, along with other private industry folks. So I look forward to being part of the team, and thanks for having me here today.
Thank you. Thanks for those opening statements. Now, we could start with a boring question like, you know, why are you the best candidate for the job? We're not going to do that. Let's talk about what a few you mentioned in your opening statement. You know, there have been many media stories, many allegations of public utilities, solar rooftop companies, others funding campaigns of ACC candidates with dollars that are not disclosed to the public. Some call it dark money, some call it freedom of speech. Let's start with Commissioner Burns. You know, is this appropriate? Is it not? What should be done, if anything, to deal with this matter?
Well, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that it is okay for the utility corporation to participate financially in the campaign. So I certainly have no problem with that. I think it's not necessarily the right thing to do, but that's the law as ruled by the court. However, I think that if a utility participates in the election of a commissioner, then that utility needs to report in a timely manner so that the ratepayers and the voters understand where they're coming from. And that's what I say is what I said earlier, that is part of the transparency issue that needs to be brought out to the forefront. We need to have, the voters need to be educated as to what's going on during the election cycle. The money should not be hidden, and it is, as I said, legal for them to do it, so I'm not advocating or trying to stop any of that. I disagree with it. I think it's not the right thing to do to have a regulated utility participate in the selection of those who regulate them.
Okay. Rick Ray?
Well, my view is, one, it's the commissioner's responsibility in the rate cases that come before it, and APS is having a rate case, to thoroughly vet everything that they want reimbursement on. The ratepayer should pay absolutely 0% of any charitable or political contributions. And then, again, that's the responsibility of the commission to make sure that happens, not just letting staff kind of look at things. But I think that you begin to cross a line when you say, we want to check and see what you do with your profits. And as I understand it, the commission regulates APS. They don't oversee Pinnacle West, and they, as I understand it, don't have that legal right to say, here, show us your stockholders' investment, where you spend your money. So I think there's a fine line, and I've been a part of being attacked by the IRS. I know people who have been larger contributors to conservative causes that have been flagged for audit by the IRS because they support conservative causes. And then one of the most, I think, well-known examples is Brandon Eck with Mozilla, who had been a co-founder of the Mozilla browser and Thunderbird email client, who had made a $1,000 contribution to the One Man, One Woman campaign in California. $1,000, which is, at his level of potential funding, is minuscule. And yet, once they found out, they attacked him ruthlessly, and he had to resign from the company he co-founded.
Okay.
So I think there's, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. I just want to tell you. You can wrap up your thoughts. Just want to tell
Well,
you.
I think that we have to protect people's free speech rights, but we also have to thoroughly vet to make sure no ratepayer pays any of that.
Tom, you and Bill mentioned this issue in your opening statement. So maybe if you could put a finer point on, if elected, what you would do to, either curtail dark money or what you think the problem is and how you would fix it.
Well, first of all, we're not talking about Walmart and any contributions that it makes. A utility is a government-created monopoly. The customers of that utility, because of the government franchise, can't take the wires from their home and connect it to anywhere else. We need to know what went in and how that utility spent its money. And if we listen to the Attorney General, 3 votes of the commission can open up Pinnacle West books. I, as a commissioner, will subpoena those records from APS and find out every nickel that is spent. It's my obligation to those ratepayers. What goes into their rates and why it costs them what it does when they plug in their electricity. That's fair. No one is privileged to get the rates they want by buying an election, and no one is privileged to hide their political investments away from the ratepayers, whether it's Pinnacle West or APS.
Tom, I hope you're not this shy of the rest of the debate. Speak up. Al Melvin, go ahead with this question about free speech / dark money.
One thing that interests me, when this subject comes up, rarely is it pointed out that the solar industry weighed in heavily in the last election over 2 years ago. In fact, they pretty much sponsored 2 pro-solar teams, a 2-person Democrat team and a 2-person Republican team. And in the process, even though all those candidates were clean elections, they weighed in with so-called dark money to the tune of almost $1 million. Regarding the utilities, one example that I think about is if there is a privately held water utility, and if that company, through its profits, decides to give money to Planned Parenthood or to a pro-life organization by weighing into the public square, they should be allowed to. And I think the energy utilities are the same. They have a right to defend their position. This has gone to the Supreme Court in the Citizens United case. So I would just ask everyone to be critical thinkers and look at all of the information, including the involvement of the solar industry in our elections.
Thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Chris. Let's talk a little bit about the Citizens United case. Justice Scalia, who I don't think any of my former colleagues, my Republican colleagues, would say is not a conservative and loves the First Amendment, he, in the Citizens United case, believed that disclosure of political contributions is critical if we are to preserve our democracy. And let me just read what he actually said. So there's no misunderstanding, because I hear this argument, I stand on the side of freedom in the First Amendment. Well, Justice Scalia said, requiring people to stand up in public for political acts fosters civic courage, without which democracy is doomed. So yes, disclosure. We're talking about secret money. You know, in the history of the state, the utilities, including APS, didn't get involved in commission races. For over 100 years, they didn't. That all changed with the new executives at APS. Under the old administration, with Bill Post and Jack Davis, it was a fireable offense at APS to get involved in commission races, and that's when the contributions were disclosed. So Citizens United and Justice Scalia said disclosure, we need disclosure to protect our democracy. And I would just echo everything that Tom said. I'll sign the subpoena. Mr. Gray is wrong. The commission has jurisdiction over Pinnacle West. It's the Woods case. Read it. It's the Woods case. They have jurisdiction. We'll also need 3 votes. Join with Commissioner Burns and Commissioner-elect Chabin, and we'll sign the subpoena and get the money so that people in Arizona can make informed decisions. We're not saying they can't do it under the Citizens United. We're saying the public should know how much money they're spending to get the commissioners elected that are going to decide what our rate cases are going to be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gray, your name was invoked there if you want to respond at all.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Just if anyone,
Well, because it's true, they have jurisdiction over Pinnacle West.
no,
we
but
do,
if anybody's
commission.
candidate, if a candidate's name is invoked, we'll give them 30, 40 seconds to respond.
Well, since I've got a few minutes, or at least a few seconds, sorry, I was trying to stretch it. But, you know, the sad part about this is there's a certain amount of demagoguery. There's a certain amount of appealing to people's fear and angst. And, you know, that's obvious. It's going to happen in politics. I just think it's unfortunate. I do think, and my values are strong there. It doesn't make any difference what one person may say. If a company has private profits, it is up to them, as far as I'm concerned, where to spend it. I would prefer all of the utilities stay out of the election and just let the campaigns run. But unfortunately, I don't have any control over that. And I want to say for Reese and Little, they had, that was independent expenditures. They don't have any control over that either. You know,
Okay.
my view is freedom is better than.
Thank you. Let's
not
go to
freedom.
Boyd Dunn.
Thank you. Starting to feel like we're back in law school. But there's a second Supreme Court decision, McCutcheon, in 2014, where Justice Kennedy actually said that when it comes to the issue of disclosure, that should be up to the states to require disclosure, to what extent. And for example, the state of California did go along with significant disclosure. Arizona has gone the other direction for reasons it feels important in the legislature, and Senate Bill 1516, where disclosure is not as required as other jurisdictions. That was the right of the states to do, to uphold the right of corporations or special interest groups or unions to exercise their free speech right to be involved in political campaigns. That's kind of the reality. As a lawyer, you've got to look at what the law is here in the state of Arizona. I guess, you know, trying to figure out the history of this whole thing, I've met with the players that have been involved, APS as well as solar agencies. And I've told them personally, I think there's, you know, this is what they should do. Try to resolve the issues between themselves. Go along with the governor who indicated that mediation should occur and take that seriously and resolve those issues principally on rooftop solar. That's what we're talking about. That's the issue. If not, though, bring your best case forward to the Corporation Commission, present the facts, leave it out of the media, leave it out of all the other areas, and bring it to the commission, and we'll make that decision for you. That's our responsibility.
Thank you. Mr. Tobin, you want to wax poetic on this topic?
Well, I learned not to use anybody else's name, but you're going to give them 45 seconds.
Yeah, I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson.
So, and what I want to do is invoke Scalia on Obamacare, but I don't know if that'll carry on too long. So, yeah, he can't be here with us for that one. So, listen, I know this is a fun conversation for Bob Burns and the Democrats. But at the end of the day, you know, I ran for Congress. Many of you probably saw a commercial or two. I got swacked with $12 million worth of attack ads. Yeah, I didn't wake up, and APS supported my opponent. I didn't get up in the morning and call and whine about it. I called Ann Kirkpatrick. I wished her well. I said, hey, let me know if there's anything I can do to help for you. And I moved on. So I'd like to move on. There's a lot of issues that are really at stake here, especially with our small water companies. And we have people in Arizona who don't have water. Like, the well doesn't work. I mean, communities, these old plats, they don't have water. Tacna down in Yuma, that one's about ready to implode with a huge tank that's been leaking from the sieve, and it's the new one, or not the new one, but it's the second one after we had a WIFA loan on it. We have places like Citrus Park, which are right across the street. When you get a call from a veteran, they're like, you know, there's nothing coming out of my faucet. That's what's important. You know, we can go debate this, you know, dark money thing, and I'm sure that'll be fun for them to do, but at the end of the day, those people don't care so much about that. They want somebody to bring some water home. And you folks wanted somebody to get, you know, bureaucrats out of your way so we can have good water policy. I've been there 5 months, and we've done that. And I intend to be there a little bit longer so we can do more.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I believe I was invoked.
Yes, go ahead.
I meant former president of Senator Burns. I thought Brenda was here.
Go ahead, Mr. Burns.
You appear to be a slow learner.
Did he mention my name
Mr.
there or
Chairman.
what?
You appear to be a slow learner because you just said you learned, and you didn't.
I just drank from Bill's water. Does that mean I'm gonna get feisty too?
Go ahead.
I think the bottom line issue is undue influence of the regulators. And so that has to be prevented at all costs if possible, because undue influence leads to unfair advantage. And the unfair advantage that results is the utility being unfair to the ratepayer through the advantage that they might have in the regulator. So it is a critical issue. It doesn't keep me or any other commissioner from working on the problems of the water community. We were all involved in the vote that took place to fix the problem. So this has to be fixed in my mind.
Okay, real quick, last question on this topic for the two Democrats. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it seems like you're running a anti-APS, anti-utility platform, if that's accurate. Real quick, just 30 seconds, how can you fairly regulate APS and other utilities if you're going to campaign against them? Just real quick, so promise I'd ask it.
Well, I think the mistakes that Lucy Mason made and Vernon Parker made in their primary 2 years ago wasn't to recognize that APS was running against them. This isn't just that they're spending money, and probably will against me, but they're under investigation by the FBI and corrupted the commission maybe. Are we going to have one or two commissioners indicted?
Yeah, no, I just want to ask you, you
So
feel you'll be able
I
to
can be fair.
regulate?
I can
Okay.
be fair on
Okay.
any case.
Okay. Bill, you the same?
Well, the only thing I would say is I think the question would also be fair, Chip, if you ask the Republicans, you know, can they be fair to everyone that appears at the commission? I mean, I did it for 9.5 years. I was fair to APS. I was fair to the merchant plants. I was fair to the water companies. I was fair to AARP. I was fair to the solar companies. You know, so the fact that we're running, because that's the cloud over the commission.
Sure.
We're not just making it up. One of the commissioners said, you know, and your question kind of alluded to it, that we're making up these scandals. The FBI, it's unprecedented. Come on. They serve subpoenas on APS, on the commission, and interviewed the former chairman. So I think I can be fair. I think my record speaks for itself. I see a lot of faces here. I won't say old friends because I'm not sure if they are or not since I've changed parties. But let me just say I was fair for 9.5 years, and I'll do it in the future. And
Great.
let me just say one other thing. The commission is not the legislature. It has different codes of conduct, different rules. There's a specific rule that says you're supposed to avoid the appearance of impropriety. I serve in the legislature. I have a lot of respect for that institution, but the commission is quasi-judicial. As Boyd said, it's not the legislature.
Okay, great. All right, let's move on. Talk about a different topic. Let's start with Andy Tobin on this one. He looks a little lonely down there.
I thought you were going to ask Lucy to speak.
Sorry, Lucy, you don't get
Her
any
name was
time here.
invoked.
Yeah. Do you agree that distributed generation, or more specifically rooftop solar, results in cost shifts onto non-solar customers? Why or why not?
Well, I think it does at the current retail rate, but, I think as we move further in the process, in rural Arizona, the biggest key is to make sure we have all our tools in our toolbox, not just a few, not to eliminate any. It was just in Springerville yesterday, and, we've got a coal issue up there. Our president's gone out of his way to shut down as many of those as we can. Let's have a conversation about those jobs up in Springerville. Let's talk about that base load that's critical to our grid. Let's then have a visit up to Bullhead City and see if many of you who know Bullhead City, see what that town looks like today after we shut down a coal power plant. So all these things have to be part in the toolbox. I'm trying to move along the technology piece, as many of you have heard, and some of my APS friends weren't happy, and we got along just fine, and we were able to come to an agreement on moving forward on storage concept. We just had this conversation a few weeks ago, which I think is the next critical step as we move forward. So does rooftop solar have a place? You bet it does. And at the end of the day, so does storage.
Okay.
And so does gas. And so does, many of our uranium issues too. So, yeah. Got a place.
Boyd Dunn, does it result in cost shifts onto non-solar customers?
Well, I think if I understand the current status of the issue, I think the Corporation Commission back in 2013 decided that there was a cost on the grid for solar at amount of what it was 70 cents a kilowatt, or about average about $5, $5 a month in terms of the bill. Obviously the debate will be whether that should change, but at least the concept that yes, solar does have a responsibility to share to some degree the cost of the grid is at least an existing precedent. It's hard to talk about any more about the case without trying to be impartial about what the elements are, because there's other issues in terms of whether that should be a retail wholesale rate, whether there should be demand charges, whether there should be other aspects of sharing the benefit and the cost when it comes to rooftop solar. The bottom line is there is a process going through right now as a docket to demonstrate to the commission what is the benefit to rooftop solar compared to the cost, and that hopefully will bring a lot of that to a better understanding. But the key is solar has to be a part of Arizona energy. And I know I know the governor feels that way when he travels, that it's important to say that Arizona is a major player in the role of solar. And there are examples around the nation, in New York and things of that sort, where that issue between rooftop and the utilities can be solved, and that's going to be the major decision of this commission.
Okay. Bill Mundell?
Thank you, Chris. It goes back to what we've been talking about. You need commissioners that are going to be fair to all parties that appear in front of them. And in my perspective, and it kind of reminds me of what was occurring back when we had a lot of merchant plants move into the state of Arizona over on the west side, and we were trying to decide what was in the best interest of the consumer, the customer, and APS would come with their expert witnesses, and say, no, we can generate electricity cheaper than the merchants. And then the merchant plants would come in with their expert witnesses and their accountants and their engineers and say, no, we can generate electricity cheaper than APS. And so you need a independent, fair, objective study that does an analysis of the costs and the benefits of solar, and more importantly, not look at the issue in a vacuum. And that's what was happening last summer when Renz and I intervened, at the commission. You need to look at these issues normally in a general rate case, so you can look at all the revenue, all the expenses, and make a fair, informed decision for all the parties concerned.
Okay, thank you. Al Melvin?
I think as a state and as a nation, we should take full advantage of all energy producing capability available to us, and that includes solar. When we look at solar, if there are any changes down the road, I think those that have purchased solar panels or leased them for their home or their businesses should be protected by a grandfather clause because they made economic decisions with the regulations and laws at the time. I believe that no ratepayer, no homeowner should be expected to subsidize any other homeowner or ratepayer. I also believe that anyone benefiting from the grid should help support it and maintain it. I think we should be looking, as I started to say, with all energy options, including clean coal. And the Obama administration's tax through the EPA on the Navajo generating station and putting several major coal companies out of business. I believe coal is clean, as is nuclear power, hydro, biomass, and we should take full advantage of all of those options.
Thank you. Tom?
Kind of repeat the question there.
Basically that regarding rooftop solar, does it result in a cost shift onto non-solar customers? You know, a lot of critics will say that, you know, the solars should pay for itself, that non-solar customers shouldn't have to pay for it. That's the gist of the question.
Well, you know, you have a couple of studies out there, one created by the solar industry and one by the utilities. And, you know, they don't agree. You know, one says there's not any stress, and the other says there is by $80 a year or something like that, so, or a month. The bottom line, what I'm looking at to begin with, let's just take a look at the bottom line for each utility that's involved and how many customers they have. You know, it's 1-2% now, residential, solar. And where's the stress? Where's the stress? Is it the bottom line? Is it the bottom line? If we're looking at APS, no, they made $60 million more last year than they did the prior year. Is it Fortis? No. Instead of making $300 million last year, they made $700 million last year. I know that there's a decline because of weatherization. It isn't just rooftop solar. You can see a decline in revenue, but I still don't realize the stress, and I'm going to have to be convinced of that. And if there is a stress, then yes, over time, we'll have to address it.
Thank you. Rick Gray?
Well, this is one of the big issues and one of the battles, and I think this is why we've seen some contention over the last few years, is the battle between the utilities and the solar. As I've been looking at what's going on in California, San Diego has reached its cap. And so it's looking at what it needs to do, and so they're looking at net metering 2.0. And if you look at that, the net metering people, I mean the solar people, have acknowledged that there are some shifts, and that tweaking that into the net metering 2.0 may be beneficial. So it isn't my opinion, it's their opinion. And I think that's what we need to look at, is how do we make this as beneficial for all concerned. Solar is going to be a part of our grid perpetually. It's going to be with us, it's going to grow. I don't think there is a battle to extinguish that, at least nobody that I knows. But it's how we massage that to create win-win-win situations. We've got utilities, we've got solar providers, we've got ratepayers, and I think if we look at that in a stakeholder capacity, working again to look at creating win-win-win situations, I think it's doable. And again, looking at what's coming out of the net metering 2.0, I think there's a lot of positive potential. I do believe that any pre-existing customers that have solar need to be grandfathered in. Anything else would be unconscionable.
Okay, thank you. Bob Burns?
Yeah, well, first of all, the question about shift, I believe there is a shift, but there's shifts all throughout the whole system. There are many shifts. And as candidate Dunn referred to, there is a docket at the commission to gather the facts and try to determine maybe what other shifts exist as well. It's open to information and input from whoever wants to contribute. But I would point out that there is, I believe, a possible shift in the future, relative to water. We are about to go into shortage on the Colorado River, and when we do, Arizona is the first one to take a hit as far as the allocation in the Central Arizona Project Canal. Now, the current method of thermal generation uses a lot of water. The renewable energy generation resources don't use water. So are we going to have a shift where the cost of water goes up because of the way we generate electricity? Or are we going to rely more on a less water-intensive form of generating electricity to save money on the use on water? So to me, that's a potential shift on the horizon. These are all things that we need to look at. We need to look at everything. We don't just need to focus on the rooftop solar issue alone. There are other shifts throughout the system that we have in generation.
Okay, thank you. Let's go down to L. Melvin, so we go down the middle of the row here so we don't get monotonous. Do you think the rooftop solar leasing industry should come under some form of regulation by the ACC? And if so, to what extent should it be regulated?
Well, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know there has been discussion that when the solar industry leases panels to homeowners as opposed to selling them, then they become a utility. I think logic would stand up and say that there's something to be said for that. So I firmly believe that there is a chance to bring peace between the solar industry and the traditional energy utilities. I really do. And I know the governor has stepped forward to try to make that happen. A couple of ballot items were eliminated off of the ballot out of an agreement between the energy utilities and the solar industry. So I remain optimistic that we can have peace between the two. But I think that is a valid question. If the solar industry leases panels to private homeowners or businesses, and they're in the business of generating electricity, one could make the argument that that should come under the purview of the commission.
Okay, thank you. Bill Mundell?
Well, I would just say that's somewhat ironic when we talk about less regulation. So I would be, I guess, very careful in going down that road. We're talking about more regulation, not less regulation. A number of the companies in my prior position I know were regulated by the Register of Contractors. So I just think we need to be very careful going down that road to add more regulation in our state. I agree there might be I would hope there would be a solution between the utilities and the solar industry, but in any negotiation you need people coming to the table that are on an equal footing. And if one side thinks that they don't really have to compromise, then the negotiations are certainly going to fall apart on day one. And so I agree, it would be preferable if we could look forward and we could have our utilities and our solar companies, everyone working together for our energy future, because our energy future is going to be different 10, 20 years from now. We have Tesla batteries. Obviously, the problem with solar is at nighttime. And so if you look 20, 30 years from now, what is our energy future going to look like? We need to have commissioners that are going to facilitate that and not take sides.
Okay, thank you. Boyd Dunn?
When I was in Sierra Vista, I met with the chamber and met with an individual that indicated that they were trying to buy a home in Sierra Vista that had a lease on a solar system, and were told that they had to requalify for the lease individually in order to buy their home. And they did not feel comfortable with that, and they walked away from that opportunity. I've also talked to Representative Gosar about his, I guess he had to get some legislation through the federal government in terms of mortgages, second mortgages that came on houses to purchase solar. So there's some issues out there, and I agree. I don't want more regulation with the commission, but that's part of the issue. When people purchase a system, whatever plan that's being out there, whatever the business model is, and it doesn't work, they want to go to someone, and they typically go to the commission, or they talk to me as a candidate commission saying, you know, that has to be solved. We don't want to, we're interested in solar, but it's not working out the way that we're hoping it would work out. So I think that's hopefully part of the process we'll go through to some degree in this benefit expense analysis. You know, I think, you know, in talking to solar, I've encouraged them to look at their business model, see what they could do to help with that scenario. We had problems in the city of Chandler when you can't control what a business says they will do or the promises they make in terms of purchasing a home. Here, they're dealing with the solar industry, and I hope that they can regulate themselves so that they can make certain that the promises they make will actually pan out for that 20-year period of time. It doesn't seem it's working as well as it should be.
Okay. Mr. Tobin?
Yeah, thanks, Chip. You know, I spent 8 years in the legislature and almost 4 as speaker, and I got billions of dollars out of government. I wrote the regulatory moratorium. We eliminated the election official retirement plan going forward as we know it. I've cut taxes all along the way. I see absolutely no point in adding more regulation to an industry. So my answer, if this was a speed round, would be no.
Okay, great. Well, speaking of the speed round, we have to go to Bob and Rick and Tom, right, for the rooftop solar leasing question. Do any of you guys think it should be regulated by the ACC?
Well, as a small business person operating a regulated business and going into the legislature with a conservative credential, it's always been my attempt to find ways to reduce regulation rather than increase it. And so I think that's the thought process that I would use as we go forward in this regard. So we need to be able to free up the entrepreneurial juices that exist out there in our community, and let people come up with the ideas to make the entire system better, in my opinion, and that's helped by having less regulation, not more.
Okay, thank you. Rick Ray?
I would concur. I think that when we're looking at regulatory agency like the Corporation Commission, they regulate monopolies. In the leasing industry, there is no monopoly. There are more than one vendors, people have choices, and I think we have to be very careful in expanding the control of the state, in infringing on people's rights. As long as people have choices, then I don't see the need for regulation other than what might apply legislatively. So my default would be no, unless there was some kind of proven evidence that there was a critical need, and I just don't see that.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
Substantially, I agree, leaning away from not regulating. However, if there is a time and a place where bad actors in the industry, render bad deals to consumers, that may be a time and place when regulation may be necessary. But I would have to say we're not there yet.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I'm sensing some bipartisan agreement here on this issue, perhaps?
sounded
That's
like
nice.
it, yeah.
Let's do our lightning round. And on these questions, these are what I would call just Joe's six-pack questions, basic questions. All I need are a yes or no answer. And if you try to elaborate, I'll go to the next person. So these are just yes or no, what you think off the top of your head. And let's start with Bill Mundell. Yes or no? Do you believe that man-made greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide contribute to climate change? Yes or no?
Yes.
Boyd Dunn? No. Who's down there? Mr. Tobin?
Yeah, I think everything contributes to climate change.
Okay, that's it. Mr. Burns, do you think man-made greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide contribute to
That was
climate change?
more than one word. by
I
the
know,
way.
I know.
Okay, well, because I would agree with that.
We'll penalize him
Hey,
later.
just checking.
Mr. Burns, yes or no? What? No, it's yes or no.
Is it yes or no?
Yes or no? No, okay. Mr. Gray,
Yes, I agree with Bob.
that you don't think it's, so your answer is no?
I've seen no solid evidence, no.
Okay. Tom Chabin?
Yes.
Okay. Al Melvin?
No.
Okay. Let's start with Mr. Tobin on this one. Do you believe
No.
that? All right, we'll go down here. Mr. Tobin, let me ask the question before you cut me off. Do you believe the Earth is getting warmer and are man-made factors contributing to this? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay. Bob Burns? This is what the people want to know. Yeah, that's a long question. Just yes or no? Is the Earth getting warmer? Sure. Okay. Rick Ray?
You know, some questions are
No,
tough.
yes or no? Yes or no? It's a lightning round, not a.
Could you repeat the question?
Yep. This one is: do you believe the Earth is getting warmer and are man-made factors contributing to this?
Possibly.
Possibly. Okay. Let's. Yeah.
I thought it was yes or no.
Tom Chabin?
Yes.
Al Melvin?
No.
Okay. Bill?
Is it yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, I would say yes.
Okay. Boyd Dunn?
There's no degree, right? I would say in other parts of history, as it has occurred,
What,
yes.
what was that? What was that? Are you a lawyer? Okay.
That's why
all right.
I did it. I am a lawyer.
Let's start with Mr. Tobin. Do you think that? Oh, no, actually, let's start with Rick Gray.
See, it worked.
Do you think that?
We don't really have the answer though, Chip. I mean, if you want to
Do you
go
think-
this direction and get an actual yes or no answer.
Rick Gray, do you think corporation commissioners should be appointed by the governor?
No.
Tom Chabin?
No.
Okay. Al Melvin?
No.
Okay. Bill Mundell?
No.
Okay. Boyd Dunn?
No.
Mr. Tobin? Bob Burns? No. Okay. I think we have pretty much agreement on that. All right. Back to the regular questions. Let's start with
Going
Tom
forward.
Chabin. A lot of people wanted me to ask this. What is a fair rate of return for utilities?
That's a very good question.
Okay. This is not yes or no, so you have a minute and a half to
No,
explain. your
I
brilliance.
mean, I'm just saying that that's a very good question. I heard the other day, the city councilman was told by utility they thought a fair rate of return was 10%. Now, what are we getting on a CD, right? I think that it depends on the size of the utility, its capacity, its strength, and fairness to the ratepayer. So I'm not trying to avoid. I mean, 8% seems pretty good. That's what Pinnacle West is returning, and I think Fortis is about 8% as well. That's pretty good. Could it be less? Is that fair? I would look at that.
So somewhere in the
I
6 to 10% range?
It depends on the utility and their strength. You know, if it's a smaller utility, they may need to have a little bit more of a buffer. But if it's larger, and yeah, I'd take 5%. Is that fair? 6%? 4%? I don't know. I'd take a look at it.
Okay, all right. Al Melvin, do you have a number for me?
I don't have a number, but I do want to comment that I believe that the commission has a responsibility to try to provide the most reasonable rates for our citizens and our businesses. In my travels throughout the state to Lake Havasu and to Flagstaff and so many places, you know, we have a lot of poor people. We have a lot of retired people that need to have reasonable rates. Likewise, the commission has a responsibility to keep the utilities viable in business so they can keep up their infrastructure. I think we can learn from other states. For instance, in Pennsylvania, they've taken the lead in the area of water utilities. They had about 300 privately owned water utilities that about 100 were not viable. They were unhealthy. So their commission helped fold them into the remaining 200, and they continued the process to about 100. So now they have 100 that are really good, healthy water utilities, and everyone benefits. So we have an obligation to both parties, the utilities and the ratepayers.
Okay. Bill, do you agree with your Democrat colleague about 5 to 10% fair rate of return?
I don't have a percentage, and in fact, I actually think it might not be appropriate to have a percentage. Each case that comes before the commission, you need to look at the facts and the evidence and balance. And the case law talks about balancing and protecting the consumer at the same time being fair to the utility. So it's a balancing act. Each case is case specific on what would be appropriate or not appropriate in a given circumstance. But again, you need, remember, we're talking about state-sanctioned monopolies. And so you need commissioners that are going to be fair and objective and base their decision on the facts and evidence. But I don't have a percentage number.
Okay. Boyd Dunn?
Yeah, I certainly am not going to indicate a percentage, and I think this is an issue that people don't realize when I go out and speak on the campaign trail, that there is a balance that's actually mandated in the Constitution of the state of Arizona, being, coming up with rates that are just and reasonable for the consumers, but at the same time, allowing those, and not only we're not talking about the utilities, but allowing those who take the risk as investors in the utility business, who must provide safe and reasonable sources of power to also receive a fair return. And that's the balance that the commission needs to take in every case, and it has to be on a case-by-case basis, because it's going to be different. The findings are going to be different, certainly with an electric cooperative than it would be with a larger utility. But that's the reason I guess it takes 18 months to go through that process to come up with a fair answer on both those sides of the equation. I had some experience that as a mayor in the city of Chandler. We were very proud that we had, and I think we still do, at least when I left as mayor, the lowest water rates of any municipality in the state of Arizona, while still maintaining water for some of the sizable industries. Intel, $5 billion plants with 4 of them, taking an enormous amount of water to produce things and being able to assure that water supply. So, there are a lot of things that you can do to try to cut your costs and things of that nature. Obviously, a city is not in there to make a profit, but whatever you do, you have to look at both sides of the equation and make certain that the utility is going to continue being able to provide safe and reliable service.
Thank you. Andy Tobin, you've been on the commission now five months?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a fair rate of return? Any kind of ballpark?
Well, I have been on there 5 months, and I've got 5 water companies that probably should have come to the commission long before this to talk about some kind of rate of return. But these smaller groups, they don't have 2 lawyers. They don't have accountants. I mean, they struggle with being able to keep up their infrastructure as it is. And so, and quite frankly, 132-day average for these emergency cases is just way too long, which was why we went ahead and moved forward to get these things limited to 60 days so we can have emergency responses in a very quick period of time. Well, we have some that sit there for 6, 7, 8 years on a rate case. So think about if you're the small guy out there. I think you're probably more worried about, okay, how am I going to afford the accountant? How am I going to afford the lawyer so I can come in front of the commission, so I can make 13 copies, so I can get hearings 5 months down the road, 6 months, 12 months down the road? That's part of the problem. We think we've now addressed that. So if you talk about deregulating that a little bit, I think that goes a long way. But you can't possibly come up with a rate of return knowing all of these different anomalies that exist in these utilities and especially these small water companies. You have to be fair, you have to be knowledgeable, and quite frankly, you just got to get up out of your chair at the Corporation Commission and go someplace in the rural Arizona, maybe take a look and see who those people are who don't have water, or who those people are who have uranium in their water, or who have arsenic in their water. Instead of sitting around worrying about a pencil and whether it's sharpened or not. We need to give these people unfettered access to resources at the Corporation Commission so we can partner together and make it work for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Bob Burns? Fair rate of return for utilities?
Yeah, I think every case has to be handled on a case-by-case basis, as has been stated here, and based on the facts that are presented in each individual case. And I don't believe I have anything else to add other than what's already been said by some of the other people here at the table.
All right. Rick Gray?
I think cookie cutters are fine for cookies. They don't work good for utilities, and so I would agree. The cases have to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, and that requires the work of the commissioners, and that's the way I think it would serve not only the utility, but the ratepayer best.
Okay. Does everyone remember the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears? Too much, too little, or just right? Michael Grant loves these questions, so I told him I'd ask. The only response you need is too much, too little, or just right. Let's start with Boyd Dunn on this one. Is the renewable energy standard of 15% by 2025 too much, too little, or just right?
Just right.
Okay. Andy Tobin?
I'm not sure.
Can I change my answer?
Which way are you leaning? There's reporters in
just
the
not
room. They
sure.
want these answers.
Yeah, I don't care about it. Howie called me last night. I don't care. You know, the answer, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Bob Burns, renewable energy standard of 15% by 2025.
I'm not sure we even need it anymore.
You're not sure we even need it? Okay. So I don't know if that's just not needed. No, too much, too little, or just right. I guess it's not just right then. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Rick Gray, what's your thoughts? Too much, too little, or just right?
I think that's one of the challenges with some of these questions is to answer it properly. I don't think you can just do those three options. I think it's yet to be seen.
I'm going to do over.
Okay.
I'm still looking at the balls.
Tom, Chapin?
Get him to
No,
invoke your
I agree with that. What is our future? I think Commissioner Burns is right. Maybe the market's going to take care of it.
Okay.
So, I
All
don't
right.
know.
All right. Al Melvin?
Too much.
All right. Did we do Bill already? Did you go yet?
No, I haven't gone yet. When I was on the commission in 2006, when we passed the...
Too much, too little, or just right?
Well, I agree with everybody else. It's a little difficult to answer. I would say I think it should be expanded if the grid can support it.
Okay. All right. One more of these.
Was I the only one that answered correctly?
You did. You get 2 gold stars for that, Boyd. Let's start with Bob Burns on this one. Too much, too little, or just right? No pontificating, right? The energy efficiency standard of 22% by 2020.
I'll go with that.
Yes?
Yeah.
Just right? Just right? That's what you're saying?
No.
Oh, I'll go more?
On that one, yes.
Okay. Can you use the microphone there so people can hear your glorious words? Too
I
much
go for more.
for more?
For more, yeah.
Okay. Rick Gray?
Cheapest electricity we have.
Okay. Rick Gray?
Well, from the data that I've got now, I remember SRP saying that 20 was unachievable. So I would say it may be too much.
Okay. Tom?
I don't know.
All right, that's a good answer. Al Melvin?
Too much.
Okay. Bill Mundell?
I don't see a downside in expanding it. So
All right. How's my star student going to answer this?
Well, until I get on the commission and be able to review it more precisely, I think it's just right.
All right. Audience question. Let's
So you
start.
don't want mine?
Oh, go ahead.
It's too much, man. No, I'm not. If we adopt our storage standards, I think we got a long way to go. Quite frankly.
Okay. Let's stay with you, Mr. Tobin. Audience question I thought was good. Give me your thoughts on how water companies should deal with aging infrastructure. Specifically, how are they going to pay for it?
Right. Well, thanks for that. We've been working on this now for a while. What we've done is we've divided this water emergency team up into three categories. The first category is, the heart attack. It's when the paramedic comes to the street corner and they see somebody on the curb, and we're putting paddles on, which happens down in places in rural Arizona, as you probably have heard me talk about, where hurry up, let's get a pump and let's get some water going. The next phase is that we have to give some medication. How are we gonna now plan this next step? Do we need to add some pipeline to this? Do we need to talk to the commission about maybe getting some more resources for that? And then the final stage is, what's the long-range goal here? Are these people selling? We have folks who have abandoned their water companies. I mean, abandoned. They're not even around. They don't even exist. The counties are active and involved because they may have to come in certain cases and maybe create a DWID. So there's a number of processes that I think we've been heading for and heading in the right direction. It's why I created the Water Emergency Team, because we're gonna put together, and it's already done with ADEQ, or Department of Environmental Quality, ADWR, we've got DEMA at the table, the counties are at the table, the cities at the table. So when a crisis comes in, we all get a call, sit down at the table, decide which way this solution is gonna go. What agency is gonna pick up the ball? And who's gonna tell the governor we have an emergency crisis and what the solution is? So nothing's in a cookie cutter mold, but we need all the experts at the table. And that's what we really did with the Water Emergency Team. And I'm very proud of that.
Okay, let's go to Boyd Dunn on this, on aging infrastructure.
First of all, water issues in Arizona have been with us for decades, and I'm glad that the Corporation Commission is going to solve the issue. I say that facetiously because we can only do so much without the help of many other agencies and the like. And I found that out as a league president in talking to cities that are desperate in terms of their water issues. And sometimes you have to realize that may mean an expectation for cities in Maricopa County to send some of that water back to the rural communities. So that's the tough political issue. I was also president of AMWA, and we heard the same thing in terms of water issues and the like. I think it's going to take an attitude of doing what we can do, perhaps coming up with some rules that can help these smaller water companies, or encouraging larger ones perhaps in terms of the infrastructure to consolidate some of these smaller companies within their confines. I mean, that's going to take some special encouragement to do so, but some of these smaller water companies are certainly not in the position to do things. And we got to think out of the box too. One of the things it was kind of a neat thing to do when I was mayor of Chandler, is that building water facilities is a huge cost to a city. And I never could figure out why every city has to have its own water production plant. Why can't we share a facility with another municipality? I went to Tempe with that idea, and Tempe said, no, our water is special. No, it's just being joke. But they said no. But I went to the city of Gilbert, and they said, why not? And we built this water facility on the border of our city, 50% of the cost for both cities, 50% staff in both cities, and saved an enormous amount of cash by just doing something jointly. So it can be done.
Thank you. Bill, let me tweak the question a little bit. Do you support the ACC's recent decision to allow regulated water companies to charge customers a surcharge for replacing aging infrastructure?
Well, I assume everybody will be asked that same question.
Sure.
Is
Just
that-
trying to mix it up because it takes a long time to get down here. And I don't want Bob Burns to have a perfect answer by the time everyone else goes.
Well, I know, I think, as I recall, there's a case pending. It's the RUCO versus Arizona Water company case, that deals with that specific issue. I think I'm correct in that regard. And certainly, again, there are some issues there of piecemeal rate making, looking at issues in a vacuum. That was the same thing with the APS surcharge on solar. So historically, the courts frown upon piecemeal rate making. I want to wait to see how the courts rule in the RUCO versus Arizona Water Company case.
Okay. Al Melvin?
As we all know, water is the most precious commodity on the face of the earth, more than diamonds, more than gold. So that's one of the thrills of running for the Corporation Commission, to be involved in that and the policy in Arizona. It's interesting, as you get into it, only 20% of the water consumed by our citizens comes under the corporation. 80% falls under the cities and the metropolitan water companies. But having said that, with the 200 or so private water companies that are that 20% of the total, about 50 of them are nice and strong and healthy. And as I mentioned before, I think we should learn from Pennsylvania and other state public utility commissions. What have they done? And They went from 300, as I said before, to 100 viable, strong water companies. We've started to do that in the current commission. I was fortunate to be in an open hearing when we started the process. The commission has a budget of 27 million, roughly, and about 270 employees, and I believe the commissioners have to make sure that the staff and the commissioners themselves facilitate these water utility companies to keep them as healthy as possible.
Tom?
I was on the board of directors of the Kachina Village Water District and Sewer District as a member of the Coconino County Board of Supervisors because a water company failed. Given that the Corporation Commission has oversight over private water companies, I would hope that would be some appreciation by the staff and the commission when a company is stressed. Secondly, I hope that the commission, that when a company is helplessly stressed, that they reveal it and bring it to the commission, and the commission is as least punitive as it can possibly be. That if it needs to be rescued and maybe sold to another private company, that can be facilitated. Or maybe better yet, that you work with the county to create a district so that there's financing to deal with aging infrastructure, there's a tax authority, there's governance, and it can be rescued. The community could be rescued. To go from crisis to crisis, are we failing as a commission? If these companies are so stressed that people are not getting water and no one knew it, maybe we should just have a greater awareness of what's going on.
Okay. Rick Ray, let's have another question to you, just because we're trying to squeeze as much as we can in the next 10 minutes or so. What should be the ACC's role in making better use of water supplies in Arizona?
Well, one, I think we can't overlap other agencies, but I would like to make one comment because of what was already said. I think
Sure.
I had made a comment earlier about preparing for the future. I think some of the things that our commission is doing now in helping some of these water companies is very beneficial. I think we need to make that rate casing as streamlined, as inexpensive as possible. And I'm just disappointed that it's taken this long. And my concern is, again, we can get caught up in just the daily work of the commission without looking ahead and preparing for the future. We should have done that years ago, and we might not have had quite the problems that we have now. It's critical, it's vital that we put things in place now so that water companies are more equipped and more prepared. The bottom line to the question, do we have infrastructure problems? Yes, clearly yes. And it's urgent. We don't get that in the media. We don't get that battle we're getting between the utilities and solar, but it is a top priority, and we need to address that as a commission.
Okay. Bob Byrne, what can the ACC do better to make better use of our water supplies here in Arizona?
Okay, I think it was infrastructure you asked.
Well, that was
Right?
going,
Yeah,
let's do
yeah.
this one right now. You can touch on infrastructure too, just trying to
All right.
mix
You
it up a
wanna
little bit.
restate that? Now I'm not sure what the question is.
Sure. What should be the ACC's role in making better use of water supplies in Arizona?
Well, I think we have a critical role, and as I mentioned earlier, on the Central Arizona project reduction and allocation, we have an opportunity possibly, again, after a full review of all of the facts, whether or not we move towards a broader use of renewables in the portfolio or not, just based on the issue of water. And the infrastructure problem, I think, is part of that. I mean, if you have bad infrastructure, you're going to have water loss, et cetera. So I think the effort that has been taken at the commission so far, Commissioner Tobin mentioned I don't know if we call it a council, a committee, the whatever, but it's a important tool to have in the toolbox. I think the issue about consolidation, if possible, again, probably on a case-by-case basis, needs to be examined, and all of those things would have a positive effect if they're done right as far as the water situation is concerned.
Okay, let's start with Al Melvin on this question about water.
So he used my name.
Oh, go for it.
Well, the answer to, a lot of the answer on the reduction has to do with a lot of the water loss in these small water companies. When you're running 10, 40, 50%, the consumer's paying for that. So the idea is to, put together the water emergency team so that we can help them and advise them and see if we can't help impact. And now we have a $500,000, it's not that much. How much is it? It's $250,000 was the water emergency fund? Is that what it was, 250? I think it was. Anyway, so that's there, so we can help advise them to kind of move that along. But there's a lot of water loss in these old, ancient, water companies, and the infrastructure is quite frankly already inadequate. But that is a unique way where we can already and immediately start impacting on our water in Arizona.
Okay, thank you. Al Melvin, customers have shown a preference for gradual hikes in water rates rather than a single large price increase. Do you agree or disagree with that philosophy?
I think there is something to be said for gradually increasing the rates so people aren't hit at 10 or 15 or 20-year intervals with a massive increase. And that would help the water utility maintain their structure in a healthy and efficient manner. So I think a rate structure that gradually increased year by year instead of in big amounts and 5 or 10 year increments would be good for everybody.
Okay, Bill Mundell?
Well, there's the concept is rate shock, and the courts have consistently held that, the commission needs to look at the impact on customers and also the impact on the utility. And it may look appropriate in a vacuum to give the increase to the water company, but you also have to take into consideration how it will impact customers. As I recall, the case was the Gold Canyon case, where if you just looked at the pure numbers, the increase looked appropriate, but you also have to be concerned about the customers of the utility and try to make a balanced decision. If I could digress for a second on the other question, on the infrastructure, we need to work, the commission needs to work, and they did when I was there with DWR and DEQ and with the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, WIFA, to help these small water companies get grants and loans. I remember we had the arsenic issue where the EPA reduced the amount of arsenic that was allowed in water, and we had to work with the small water companies to help them come into compliance, and we did that with working with DEQ and DWR and WIFA, and I would think that's what the going forward would be appropriate.
Okay.
With regard to the question, I guess, with the rate increase, I was in Sierra Vista and I talked to the cooperative that was down there, and they indicated a story where they have very low rates in Sierra Vista. People are very happy with the rates, and they went for years without asking for an increase, but they came in, it took 6 years. The 6th year they came in asking for a rate increase, and the staff of the commission actually chastised them and criticized them for not coming in sooner, that you should be coming in on a regular basis for your increase. Well, give that some thought. It's a very expensive, very detailed process to go through for especially a cooperative, and to just tell them to come through and anticipate an increase in the future when they've kept their costs down and they came in when they actually needed it, just doesn't seem to be very efficient to me. So obviously there has to be this balancing of just trying to decide, obviously when the rate is too great or just come in when you actually need it, because we should be encouraging the utility companies to try to work out their costs, themselves and through their own system before having to come to the commission. So I think there's some discussion the commission has to have, and maybe even with staff, as to what our policy should be in that regard.
Okay. Mr. Tobin, do you agree?
Well, I agree, rate shock's a real problem, but if you watch the Corporation Commission's last meeting, there was a small community that has a lot of donkeys in it that we doubled their rates. and we're not sure the contamination is resolved anyway. And yeah, up in Mojave County, we're not supposed to talk about issues for 30 days, I think is what it is. But anyway, I think, you know, those are very critical issues that are out there, and I think these small water companies continue to fall at risk. They were here in just a couple of months. We actually got them to the table right away, but it was just way too much for that community, in my view.
Okay, we seem to have consensus on that. One other lightning round question I forgot to ask. A strange man in the back who has a beard asked me to ask this. Demand charges, yes or no, good or bad? Bob Burns.
Good or bad?
What say you? Elaborate.
I thought it was a yes or no fast question here.
I'll give you 10 seconds.
I mean, you gotta define the demand charge. There can be all kinds of them, different.
Okay.
That's, I don't see a way to answer that question.
Okay.
In a yes or no fashion.
Not fair.
All right. Let's go to another question.
Sorry, Howie.
I was trying to do a favor for, well, speaking of Howie, back when I was covering politics at the Republic, I think it was before Howie Fisher had his AARP card. It was that long ago. Most people thought of the ACC as a place to go to extend your political career, you know, improve your legislative pension, and it was a really quiet place. Nothing bad or good, you know, not a lot of publicity. That's obviously not the case anymore. If you were to read the media, and I know a lot of times people blame the media, but there's been plenty of stories about how the Corporation Commission is mired in dysfunction, infighting, and people not getting along. So I want to know from each and every one of you, and we'll start with Boyd Dunn, if elected or re-elected, how will you change or improve that perception or image?
Did my wife send that question? When I retired, and I was fully retired from the Superior Court, the governor appointed me to the Arizona Power Authority. And I'm serving on that power authority, which I didn't even know existed or even what it did exactly, but it deals with 50-year contract. I'm getting my answer, but 50-year contract for Hoover Dam Power. And the reasons were there were issues of conflict of interest, issues of mishandling of funds. They're going through an audit. There was a danger of investigation from the Justice Department, and now we have an AG and another attorney supervising the operation of the commission. That based on that experience and based on the fact that I felt I wanted to stay in some area of public service and not necessarily go to the casino as much as I thought retired people should. No, I just got, people came to me and encouraged me to go to the Corporation Commission to address probably not similar issues, but some issues of the image of the Corporation Commission. The Corporation Commission is extremely important to the state. You're right. When you mention the word, there's not a positive feeling you get back from many people, but it does a critical job in the state, and it has to do even a better job, not only for citizens, but for business development in the state. Business development was very important to me as mayor. It was exciting. It was important to my city. I think business development is also important to the state of Arizona, and the Arizona Corporation Commission needs to be operating in its best form and fashion for us to be successful.
Okay, Mr. Tobin?
Yeah, thanks, Chip. They said the same thing to me when I got appointed to the Department of Weights and Measures to be the director there when the governor had called me. And in 6 months' time, the governor and I had figured out how we can transition the entire agency away so I could go home and back to my business. Later on, the governor called and asked me to take over the Department of Insurance and later the Department of Banking. And in that time period, we were already consolidating HR, we were consolidating government affairs, we were consolidating public, the PIO. We were consolidating a lot of things. My purpose in government is to find that it's better, faster, and how do we serve the public more. I was in aerospace. We had a program called Lean Manufacturing. The governor has brought it to Arizona. He has every one of his agencies, every one of them, has a lean program going on there, except the Corporation Commission until I came on 5 months ago. Now we have lean processing going on in the corporation to make us better. It's not about losing jobs. It's about empowering our middle management folks and our boots on the ground folks to help us make good and strong decisions. Because I think the faster I can impact government and get out of the way and get back to the private sector is good for me and my family.
Okay. Is your resume 10 pages long now? That's all I want to know.
My wife does not want me to discuss this anymore.
Bob Burns? Now, I'm not saying it's dysfunctional. I'm just telling you what I'm reading in the media. So if you can address that image and what you can do to change that perception of the place.
Well, I think the first major step that has to be taken is we need to have transparency as to who is influencing the decisions of the commission, so.
And what's the best way to do that,
to
if
me,
I could
that's a
follow up?
giant step.
What's the
Well,
best way to?
Transparency is reporting. Reporting is a method of assuring transparency, so.
Okay.
To me, that's a key issue. We gotta get the public trust back on the, to the point where it believes that the commission is independent and not unduly influenced.
Rick Ray?
I had gotten involved with politics, never planning to run for office, but I was on my homeowners association board. And I saw, I'm in Sun City, and I saw that for us, we're a county island, our community is grossly affected by what's done at the legislature and with our county supervisor, and it was key. And so when an opening came up in the legislature, I decided to run. That was my first involvement in public service. For me, the whole aspect of competition isn't exciting, but the aspect of service is. And for my values, boys, did my minute 30 is over already? I'll save the rest for later, I guess.
Okay. Tom, I'm sure you don't have anything to say on this, but just in case, go ahead.
Well, I had retired, moved from Flagstaff to Tucson, live in an 800 square foot townhouse. I mean, my life was reading, yoga, and a concert here and there. But all you have to do is Google. I mean, this isn't hearsay, right? Let's just Google Conflict of Interest Arizona Corporation Commission and see what you come up with. Google dark money Arizona Corporation Commission, and you will see articles in major publications, even in Oklahoma City. And I went and knocked on a few doors and said, what about Tom Chabin running for the commission? What kind of support could I get? And they pointed over to these guys over here and said, if they're gonna spend $3 million against you, you don't have a chance. And I thought, well, okay, I can go clean elections, raise money that way, get the funding that I need to run a campaign, to stand independent of all of that, put my public record out there, let them attack me for my bankruptcy 4 years ago, see the state and have some fun. Campaigning on what I believe. And that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. Al Melvin?
I started out in my career actually as an Eagle Scout. As an Eagle Scout, it gave me the fundamental foundation of ethics and doing the right thing. And went on to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, 30 years as a commissioned United States naval officer. I've lived a life of ethics and straightforward leading, winning teams, and I believe, and I want to make the Arizona Corporation Commission the best state public utility commission in the country, and I believe we can do that. And that will result in helping the private sector get the maximum number of jobs in the private sector to not be a welfare state or a welfare nation, but bring prosperity back to our wonderful country. And I look forward to working with my fellow commissioners to answer the question of where is our future water going to come from, and maximizing all energy sources for the benefit of our people. And I'll elaborate on that in my closing statement.
Thank you, sir. Bill?
Thank you, Chip. You know, when I was on the commission for those 9.5 years, when I used to go speak to the Kiwanis Club or Sir Optimist or Rotary, I'd have to begin the speech by telling most people what the commission actually did, you know, regulate utilities, water companies, railroad, securities enforcement. I don't have to do that anymore. Tom and I don't have to do that anymore. People know all about the Corporation Commission, but for all the wrong reasons, for everything that we talked about, the FBI investigation, the potential conflicts of interest. And so what would I do? I'll do, again, what I did when I first got appointed by Governor Hall, Republican governor. If you think back, and I see a lot of faces that probably remember this, the commission was going through something similar, very dysfunctional. Two of the commissioners, there was only 3 commissioners back then, the 2 commissioners couldn't stand each other. And here I got thrown into this situation, minding my own business, practicing law in Chandler, and I went down there, and depending on how I voted, one commissioner was upset with me or the other one. And I said, guys, and it was all guys back then, you know, there weren't any women. I said, I'm just voting the way I see the facts and the evidence. I'm not taking sides. So I would do that again if I was lucky enough to get elected in November. Specifically, text messages, emails will be available to the public. When we were there before, we used to, you know, dinosaur age, we'd write letters and put them in the docket so everyone could see them, everyone knew what was going on. But I think we need transparency and openness, with not just with who's contributing to get the commissioners elected, but also once you get there as a commissioner, having your emails and your texts available for people to see and see how you're corresponding with the public. And then lastly, I'm going to say it again to my friends up here on the dais, it's not the legislature. It's not the legislature. You don't do backroom deals. Yeah, there's a code of conduct. You have an ex parte rule. And so that's how I would function at the commission.
Thank you. All right, let's do our closing statements, and we'll start with Andy Tobin and work our way down Boyd Dunn and end up with Bob Burns. Take it away, Mr. Tobin.
Thank you very much.
60 seconds.
Oh, God, thanks. So it was just a few weeks ago, Ray Jones actually was in our water emergency meeting. And while we're having this conversation and he's texting, all of a sudden what he says, folks, we got a crisis on our hands. And it was Cordis Junction, Cordis Lakes Water Company, telling him we're about to run out of water. It's a good thing Ray and his friends were available so they can give that company some advice about having everyone curtail their water processing, because only a week later they had fires up there. I'm not sure they could have filled the fire wells for the helicopters. It's a real crisis when you're in rural Arizona. When you smell smoke, it's not somebody's barbecue. It's different for us. And I'm very proud to be able to go up there and to have seen and worked on a lot of these small water companies. I feel like we're really able to do a lot of good things for them. The Corporation Commission does securities. We do corporation filings. We do gas line safety, which, by the way, nobody's even discussed here yet. We do railroad safety. We do our utility stuff, of course. I've been traveling since February 1st and running commission meetings in different places around the state, if you haven't heard. Go to Window Rock. I didn't go up there to get votes. I went up there to talk to those folks, to let them know what we do. And I think that's a real key to what the commission can do to improve our perception by the public. Don't sit in Phoenix. Don't worry about whether you're in the legislature or the Corporation Commission. I don't need a lesson here. What I'm sharing with you is that people like to see us out there, and they like to know and have us explain what it is our job function is, because most of them don't know.
Thank you.
I'm at andytobin.com. Thanks.
Boyd Dunn.
Thank you. I think all of us up here are wanting a better Arizona Corporation Commission. That's why we're running. I would encourage you to look at the unique qualifications of each candidate and see if that candidate can contribute to improving the Corporation Commission. I think my judicial background, my background as a mayor, brings in some unique aspects that can help the group as a commission do their job better. I think we need to focus on the ethics of the job. Certainly as a judge, I will bring the highest ethical standard I'm used to the bench in terms of any potential conflict of interest. And I think also we need to focus continually on the process itself. It is a quasi-judicial process, and where we've gotten off the track over the years is that we're getting all these other tracks involved in terms of helping us make our decisions. The decision needs to be based on the evidence presented to the commission. It's a detailed evidentiary process, and you make that decision on a case-by-case basis based on the standard as very clearly spelled out under the Arizona Constitution.
Thank you. Bill Mundell.
Thank you. I think it's an honor to be up here running again for the commission. When I was on the commission before, I also made it a point to get out of Phoenix and travel around the state. At that time, we were having major problems with one of the telephone companies, I won't name them, with their infrastructure, and we went around the state and listened to the folks all through Arizona to listen to their concerns so that we could make informed decisions back here in Phoenix. I would say that, you know, the utilities don't really care whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. What we need are commissioners who are fair, objective, inquisitive, and ask tough questions of all parties that appear in front of the commission and are fair to all parties. And let me just say in conclusion, I promise to do that again, like I did for 9.5 years, if I'm fortunate to get elected in November. Again, I'm Bill Mundell, and I would ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Al Melvin?
I can't wait to get sworn in on the commission to make the Arizona Corporation Commission the #1 state public utility commission in the country. And in the process, making Arizona the most business-friendly state in the nation to put our people back to work. I also want to help answer the question, where is our future water going to come from? A good friend of mine, maybe many in the room know the name, Herb Gunther, proposed that we work with Mexico to build state-of-the-art desalination plants there and to barter electricity from Arizona to run them, and in turn we would get their Colorado River water rights to flow into our canals, and also get effective control over the western forest to create a healthy watershed, which results in a healthy Colorado River. Can't wait to get started. Check out melvinforarizona.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Chapin?
Thank you very much, all of you here. Thank you. And TEP, Unisource, thank you for making the pledge to stay out of the commission race. Every utility here that's made that pledge, thank you. Don't you wish all the IEs would stay out of it? These issues are not partisan. We have a future coming that really is not defined, isn't it? Think of our future 30 years from now. Could it be a little solar plant on our roof and a Tesla battery in our garage, and the utilities as we know it greatly diminished? Is that where we're going? I'm Tom Chapin, tomchabin.com. I'm here to facilitate that future, not obstruct it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rick Ray?
I've run most of my adult life by the golden rule, treat others the way you'd want to be treated. It was very successful for me in building my business, building those customer relationships. But I was attracted to the Rotary and became a Rotary member because of one reason, their four-way test. Their four-way test is the test of everything we do, what we say, think, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendship? Is it beneficial for all concerned? I wanted to be around people like that held those values because those are my values. I think if we have those values as we're looking at these issues, we can bring solutions that will be beneficial for all concerned. I would love to have your vote. My website is voterickgray.com. And I look forward to hopefully being able to be involved and working together to help solve problems, the ones that are now and the ones that are potentially in the future.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Bob Burns.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank everyone here for being here. Appreciate the opportunity to address all you. I want to be able to continue my efforts at the commission. I think, as I've said over and over again, transparency is critical in recovering the health of the commission in my mind. I want to be able to continue my investigations into technology as it continues to develop. As I said before, I think it's a game changer. I think the business model of the utilities is going to change, and so I want to be a part of being able to affect how that works for the benefit of the ratepayers. My webpage is bobburns.gop, so I would direct you to that as an easy way to learn more. And also am running as a traditionally funded voluntary funds. And so would appreciate any help I can get in that regard as well. And obviously, the vote is the big thing, so would appreciate your
Thank
vote
you.
and support. Thank you.
Can we get a round of applause for all these candidates? I'm going to hand the mic over to Gary Aquinto.
And can we give a round of applause to our moderator? Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience, for all of your questions. There were so many questions, we didn't have the time to ask them all, but thank you anyway. I have one final thing is Jim Hallway and Mark Taylor, are they still in the audience? Board member, CAP board members we failed to recognize. Let's give Jim a round of applause. And that concludes our program. Thank you so much.
All right, hit the road. We'll see you.
Yeah.
See you down the line.
Okay.
Good seeing you, Andy. Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you.
Going to Saddlebrook? Okay.
I gotta get back to the